Hello, and welcome back to Woes of a Witch podcast. I'm your host, Emma Witchbrook. I am a magical mentor, a tarot reader, a deck creator, and a witch of over a decade, here to share a little bit with you about my practice, my journey, and soon other people's practices and journeys because I'll be having some guests soon. I'll be having some people that I'll be doing live readings for on the podcast. So, if you're interested, if you want me to be interviewed, if you want to be given a reading to on the podcast, if you want to just collaborate in any way on the podcast, let me know. Send me an email, send me a message on Instagram, reach out. I would love to collaborate with you. But for today, it's just going to be me. As many of you probably know, or maybe you don't, I don't know, but this is season 2 of my podcast. I took quite a bit of a break in between the first season and the second season, and this is the second episode of the second season. A little 2-2 angel number vibe going on, but I'm excited to be back and I'm excited to continue to talk to you all about my practice and just my thoughts on magic and to just create a space of hopefully inspiration and learning and creativity. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Um, in the last episode, I talked a lot about where I'm at now, how I've changed, how the podcast is going to change because I've changed and magic to do around change. And, we got kind of practical in the idea of like what type of magic, what kind of spells we're going to be doing and what kind of suggestions I have for magic around transformation. And I love that. Like, I love doing that. And ultimately, this is a witchcraft podcast, right? We're going to be doing a lot of that. But today, I have a little bit of a different vibe that I want to bring. I want to talk about the humanness behind and around witchcraft, but also spirituality, and just like really kind of dive into the fact that we are humans having a spiritual experience. I have a lot of thoughts about this that I want to share with you. I have some experiences I want to share with you, and I have some things that have been inspiring me in regards to this type of conversation that I want to bring up. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Um, so let's just get into it. I mean, to be completely honest with you guys, I had a completely different plan for the second and third episode. I was supposed to attend NORWAC, which is an astrology conference in Seattle, which I did virtually attend, but my trip got canceled, and I'll get into that a little bit. But my plan for the podcast was to talk about all of the things I did magically to prep for going on a trip, which I did quite a lot of, of things to prep. So maybe that's something, I could revisit in the future. But I wanted to talk about the spells and the magic that I did to prep for the trip, and then the magic I did on the trip, and, any kind of differences that I felt like certain protection rituals that I've done in the past and tweaked for this trip, how that's changed and shifted. But the trip didn't happen. And the trip not happening was a huge disappointment, honestly. It was a huge disappointment, but also I think a very big moment of growth for me as a person. I'm a person who likes to be in control, likes to be having the answer, likes to figure something out, likes to figure my way out of something and into something. And this was going to be a solo trip for me, so it was going to be pushing that boundary already, but to kind of just have to surrender to this thing I was really looking forward to not happening. Essentially, my flight got canceled after a bunch of delays, and I wasn't able to get another flight that would get me there in time, so I had to just cancel my trip. So yeah, so all of that to say, I feel like I've been talking forever, but it's been like 5 minutes. Um, all of that to say, I was really I was really looking forward to having this really expansive experience of learning, being on my first solo trip, really expanding my astrological knowledge. I've never been to the West Coast. Like, there's a lot of firsts for me in this trip, and I was really looking forward to this very expansive experience, and I did not get that. And so sitting with that and sitting with what that feels like, what the lessons are within that, and then also, as magical beings, as magical practitioners, as witches, like it's pretty regular for me to lean on my magic to help me create the outcome that I want. And this was just something that I couldn't do that with, this was just out of my control. Even though I had done a lot of preparation spell work, which I mentioned, I did a lot of protection work. And so there was definitely some reflection there of like, okay, like I did way more protection work than I typically have done in the past going on trips. And like, is that why this flight didn't work out? Like, is there something that could have happened on the trip that I'm being protective from? Um, my partner is Muslim, and in Islam, there's this idea of something called sadqa, which essentially means like a sacrifice that you make, a bad thing that happens, bad luck, to that protects you from a worse thing. And then I was speaking to my therapist, and she is from a different culture that also believes that. Like, this is a thing, right, in a lot of cultures. And I certainly believe that too. I wouldn't say that I have a name for it, but just, yeah, this idea of like, okay, like that wasn't meant to happen. And in this instance in particular, like there was just so many things that went wrong with the flight. Like the scanner didn't work, then there was weather, then there was no air traffic route, then the pilot timed out. Like there was literally a million things that were preventing this flight from happening, that it did feel like, okay, like this is this is not happening, and this is not happening for a reason. And like whether or not that's like true, whatever true is, I feel like in my faith and my spirituality, like choosing to believe that brings me comfort. But it also it stretches me, right? It stretches my ability to grow, to trust in my faith, to trust in my own spell work and my own protections, but also to trust in like the greater good, right? The greater universal plan, to trust in my fate, to trust in my deities. Like when these things happen that are, out of our control, that leave us feeling unexpected and disappointed, it is this huge moment where we are asked, like, do we trust the guides that we have, the relationships that we have spiritually, our own faith, right? Like, and I think that as much as it sucks to have gone through that, it is a really beautiful moment of reflection. And I think this is a good example to use in this way because, like, obviously I'm bummed out about this trip, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And so it's a good way to kind of stretch that belief. Like, when really terrible things happen, I think there's like a lot of gray area. There's a lot of like, societal conditions and societal oppressions that can come into play. But I think like this is a perfect example of like, this is just a fucking bummer, and I am meant to trust this, or I'm invited to trust this, and I can choose to take that invitation or not, which I did. And I feel like honestly, there was a lot of Uranus transits going on last week. There was a Uranus Kazemi, which was like a pretty big deal, and I think Uranus is very unexpected energy, right? So this was very unexpected for me, really unexpected. And honestly, part of me was a little nervous of like, okay, I'm like completely going to be in a new environment, alone in this unexpected situation, and then I'm going to have this unexpected astrology, and what's that going to look like? And it didn't look like any of that. It didn't look like any of that. So all that to say, that's kind of what has got me wanting to talk about this idea of like being human and existing as a human in a spiritual world lens, but also as a soul, as a spiritual soul having a human experience. I think that this was like a very human moment that was like a very kind of just kerfluffle. And it was a moment where one, I couldn't access magic because I was literally like at the airport. I mean, I could have done magic at the airport. I did pull some cards and the cards were like, "You're not going on this flight." And I was like, "I don't believe that." And then I was wrong. I mean, I did believe it, but I just didn't want to. But so I couldn't literally access, ritual space in the capacity that I normally would because I was at the airport, but I also was like, okay, I do trust that there's a greater good happening here. Um, and then when I got home, I could have forced it, right? Like there were other flights, they were really expensive, they were out of a further airport. I would have missed part of the conference. Like I could have forced this. I totally could have. But I was like, I'm not going to do that. Like I just don't think that that's the thing that I should be doing. I think if I was meant to be there, I would have been there. And I'm not there. And so I'm just going to lean into this experience that I do have, which is watching the conference virtually. And I think that that is the blessing of faith, right? Is to know, like, okay, I'm not going to push this, or this, I'm accepting this. I'm accepting this faith because I'm accepting this fate because I have faith. I'm accepting what is being dealt to me. I'm accepting the deal that's being dealt to me from the gods and letting myself just be with it, even if it is disappointing. And I think that for me, a really big part of like my work as a human in this life is being more present, being more in my body, moving slower. This is a lot of the work that Persephone invites me to do, reminds me to do. Um, this is the work that my therapist reminds me to do. Um, this is part of my soul mission in this life is to be slower, is to be more intentional, is to not move too fast, is to not be pushing past my limits, but also pushing past the limits that have been set for me by the universe. And so this felt like a moment of like living that lesson that I've been hearing and trying to integrate for a while. This was a moment for me to express that and to live through that. And it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity. And I think that that's part of my personal lesson, but I think that's also a big part of like a lot of our lessons as humans. So I mentioned this idea a couple times already, and I want to like get a little deeper into it of that like we are having a human experience, we're souls having a human experience. Obviously, this is not my idea. This is, an idea that a lot of people talk about, a lot of people say, kind of, musing on consciousness, right? And musing on like why we're here and what our souls are doing. Um, and I do want to note that like I didn't always feel this way. So the belief, the thought, the thing that we're talking about, right, is that like our souls are limitless. They have many dimensions, many lives, many iterations of themselves. They've existed in many timelines, they've existed quantumly, they've existed in many realms. Like our souls are not confined to Earth or the human realm. However, at this point in time, our soul is having a human experience. And, whether we believe that our soul chose to do that or was given that task or our soul does that many times or only once, I think all of those things, I flow back and forth with a lot of them at a lot of different moments. And I think that that's part of being a human as well. Is like changing your mind, changing your mind about what you think about these really big questions and the, destiny of the soul and the origin of the soul, all these things, right? We learn more, we change our opinion, we experience more, we change our opinion. I think that's life, that's humanness, that's beautiful. Um, but I will say that I am fully committed to and unwavering in the belief that my soul is more than just my human body and has and will experience other things. Um, I used to really firmly like feel very strong about the fact that like Earth was some sort of punishment, some sort of hell. uh, that I used to feel very, very existential, and I still have those moments. I do. I think we all do, especially living through modern day capitalism, genocides, AI, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about later in this episode, environmental crisis. Like, I think it's really normal to have those existential feelings, but I used to feel that consistently, like whether I was having an existential moment and having a anxious, depressed existential spiral or not, like I felt like, okay, like Earth is the lower realm. Like there's a lower, I don't want to say vibration, but just like that this is the worst thing my soul's going to experience. Like everything else has got to be better than this, right? Oh, and I really don't feel that way anymore. I have to say, I really don't. I think that being human and living in a human body offers us some really beautiful opportunities that if we were disembodied souls, we would not have the opportunity, right? Like, I think there's a lot of pleasures that come with the human body. I think that I think the senses in themselves, right? Like being able to experience taste, touch, feel. I said touch and feel, it's the same thing, but taste, touch, smell, hearing things, like all of these things, like I don't know that our souls could experience that if they weren't in bodies. And I think there's something really beautiful to that. But I think there's a lot of things that come with the human experience that are specific to the human experience. And I think that that is like, whether or not it's good or bad or neutral or whatever, like that is the assignment. And we are here in the human body and we are meant to be here in the human body. And like that's literally the thing. And I think that as, spiritual practitioners, we often want to go to the other realms. We want to go to the astral realm. We want to go to the underworld. We want to go to the cosmos. And like we do, and I do, like for sure. Like I'm all of there all the time. I'm in all the realms. But I think that it's so important for us to come back to the human body, for us to come back to the human experience, for us to be present, because I really, really, truly believe that that's the assignment. And this is something that I have really gotten I've really sunk into this belief in the last couple of years. And I think one of the only people that I really hear talk about this in this way is Jessica Lanyadoo, who I am very inspired by. And I've mentioned before on the podcast of mine. She has her own podcast, Ghost of a Podcast. She is a humanistic astrologer. So everything she's doing in her practice, in her astrology, is centering humanness. And she does a really great job of doing that. Actually, this week, she gave a reading to someone on the podcast who was in a relationship with um, AI, like not a romantic relationship, but like having a friendship, a relationship with AI. And I think she just did a really great job of being really kind, navigating that tricky situation. But all that to say, I love Jessica Lanyadoo. But I also love that she is so grounded in her spirituality, and that's something that really inspires me about her. And it's something that I really resonate with as well, and something that I want to like bring to the things that I do and the things that I talk about, because I think that there's not enough of that in the spiritual community. Like there's not enough of bringing us back down to earth, like anchoring us in the earth. I think that it's so important, and I think again, it is the assignment. So anyway, I'm pretty sure that Jessica spoke about this on her podcast this week, as well. But yeah, I think I guess I'll get into the little small nugget about AI that I want to talk about. Which I don't want to talk about a lot at all. If you know me, maybe you don't know this already, but I'm very against AI. There's so many reasons why, but I'll say that just to wrap it up, the main reason that I'm against AI is because it takes clean drinking water away from people that need it, and that doesn't align with my values, that doesn't align with my spirituality, that doesn't align with who I am as a person. I want everybody to have access to everything that they need all the time. Clean drinking water, clean environments, safe spaces environmentally. Like, again, like as someone who believes we are meant to have a human experience embodied on the earth, I also believe in the consciousness of the earth. And I also believe that, you know, we are like, we get to be here on this beautiful, gorgeous, natural world. We get to be here. And it is just so disrespectful and like gross to me that like we are guests on this earth and all we're doing is fucking destroying it. So anyway, that's not really where I thought I was going to go with that. But it's funny because I feel like I started, I started this is going to be a rambly episode. It just is. But I feel like I started talking about how like I used to think Earth was like a punishment, and I never ever ever would think that about like the natural world. Like nature is the biggest inspiration and teacher for me, and I think a lot of spiritual people always both spiritual people but also artists. Like, you know, like I'm a creative person, I'm a designer, I'm an artist, and I am a witch, and I think those things are really intrinsic, and like nature is the end all be all of inspiration for all of that, you know, like truly. um and I think that I kind of lost my train of thought, but I think that, you know, oh, okay, I was talking about how I used to think Earth was a punishment. I never ever thought that it was because of like Earth itself. I thought it was because of like having to live in like capitalism and having to live throughout like post-colonialism and racism and just all these terrible, horrible things that humans have come up with and dreamed up of and made up, to confine ourselves, right? Like that is the reason. I thought Earth was a punishment. And you know, I like I said, I flow. I ebb and flow. Like I've been there. I'll be there again. I know I will. But I do believe that we are meant to be on this earth having this earth experience. So coming back a little bit, reeling myself in, it's Gemini season, reeling myself in. Um, the reason I'm against AI is because it destroys the environment and it also destroys human lives. And I think that as we advance, I shouldn't even call it that. I don't want to call it that. It's not an advancement. As AI develops, as the technology is pushed upon us and it develops, there's always going to be a counterculture. You know, one of my favorite counterculture movements is the arts and crafts movement. You know, this happened during the Industrial Revolution. A lot of artists, textile designers, William Morris, maybe you've heard of him, created a collective of people who were just against the Industrial Revolution. They didn't want to lose craftsmanship. They didn't want to lose quality. They didn't want to lose integrity in their work. And that is what AI is doing. It's taking away those things, right? So there's always going to be a counterculture to technological growth. And I think that as that happens, as the technological growth happens, as all of this is pushed upon us, all these, you know, AI CEOs love to say that, oh, you're going to be left behind, or it's happening, it's here, you got to get on board. Like, you actually don't. And this has happened many times in the past, that there's things that happen, and there are people who create counterculture and try their hardest to preserve craftsmanship and artistry. I do think it's a little different because of obviously like the environmental factors, as I said, but again, I'm digressing. My point is that I think now more than ever, this idea that I'm talking about of like coming back to the human body, coming back to nature. We are nature. We are a part of nature. We are ecosystems. We exist in an ecosystem. This is so much more important now more than ever, because of AI, because of climate change, because of capitalism, like all of these things that are pushing us in a direction that is unaligned with our humanness, with our soul's human purpose. So I think it's so important that we talk about this in spiritual spaces, because I think this is the most spiritual thing that we can do, is be human and have human experiences. And I'm not the only person that I think feels this way. Like obviously as I'm expressing, Jessica Lanyadoo, someone I'm inspired by, speaks about this a lot. Another astrologer that I'm really inspired by that I got the chance to hear speak at NORWAC when I did attend the virtual conference is Colin Bedel. I follow Colin on Instagram for quite some time, and it was really cool to see him speak live, even if that was on Zoom. And I don't know if he identifies as a humanistic astrologer. I'm not sure if he uses that term, but whenever I hear him speak, I always think of Jessica Lanyadoo because she is the only person I know that like identifies as a humanistic astrologer, but like he is very focused on, again, humanness, human nature. It at NORWAC was such a lovely experience, and there were so many incredible things that I learned, really technical, cool things. Um, and Colin was the only person who spoke about astrology from this perspective of like, we're human beings using this tool, and what does astrology and the advancement of astrology and the popularity of astrology teach us about our humanness? Like, how is this tool relating back to us and who we are on like a bigger level of humanity? A lot of Colin's work centers around relational dynamics, and communication and how we are in relation to others. And I just found it really fascinating and really refreshing to have that be a part of this really technological, I guess it wasn't technological, but technical is the better word. Technical astrology conference, and I loved every single part of it equally. Like I love the technical stuff, I love the esoteric stuff, I love the heady stuff, I loved all of it, but I thought it was really nice to have that element there. I felt that it grounded us in a way that was so important, in the same way that all these things that I'm talking about are grounding us. So I don't know. This is all very rambly, and there's a lot of thoughts that I'm throwing at you here, but essentially what I'm trying to say is that, like, I think that in order to have a fully fulfilling spiritual experience as a human, you have to also be human. And moments of disappointment, when our plans don't go as planned, when we can't use magic to control something, when we can't, like, avoid the way that society is changing, like these are moments when our humanness is activated, and there are moments in which are uncomfortable but are also super necessary for our experience. Like, I feel like it sounds really corny because it is kind of corny, but it's kind of like when you get your heart broken and people are like, "Oh, like, but wouldn't you rather like had the love and the loss than have neither?" And like that's kind of what I'm saying. And again, like this is like by far, it's very far from an original thought, but I'm just feeling like this is coming up for me this week, and it's coming up in my practice, and I've been feeling like I've been really busy because I had this trip fall through, and like just my schedule has been really thrown off. Like I've just like had a lot going on, and I haven't really had time to sit at my altar. My altar's a mess. I haven't had time to clean my altar. I haven't had time to unpack for the trip I didn't go on. I haven't had time to like do any magic, but I have had a lot of time to just sit and reflect in my humanness. And I think that there would have been a time earlier on in my practice when I would have maybe had a little bit of guilt, maybe had a little bit of shame, like about not doing magic or not sitting at my altar this week, or, not making the time. But the thing is that I'm not making the time for my practice or my craft. Like my life is my practice and my craft, Like living my life and experiencing my experiences is what makes me a human and a witch at the same time. Like these things are not separate. And as much as I love sitting at the altar in a ritual space and like going to these other realms of consciousness, I'm not supposed to do that all the time. I really truly believe I am not supposed to do that all the time, whether I want to or not. It's not the assignment and it's not the point. And so I say all this to say that sometimes you need that reminder that it's not about doing more, going deeper, expanding more. Sometimes it's just about sitting with where you're at, and sometimes your humanness is going to take more capacity than your magicalness. Like sometimes the mundane is going to take up more space than the magical, and like that's okay. And all, not only is it okay, like that's the point. That's the point, right? Like that is the whole thing we're doing here. Um, so yeah, that's those are my thoughts that I have to share with you this week. I'm really curious to see what you all think about this, what experiences of humanness have like kind of reflected this lesson back to you, or maybe you don't agree with me, and that's fine too. You definitely don't have to. I don't care. No, not that I don't. I mean, I don't care, but like, not that I don't care about your opinion, but I just don't. I'm not here to be right. I'm not here to influence people. I'm just here to share some thoughts and maybe some vibes and maybe get some of that reflected back. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna wrap this up with a card from my deck, Mirror Muse. A card for the week ahead. We have the full moon in Sagittarius this weekend. So let's get a card for that. I love magic. Okay, the card is lower self. And this card is literally all about everything I've been talking about. And I feel like if I were to describe it, you wouldn't believe me. So I'm going to read it from the book that I wrote for my deck, which let's see what past Emma has to say about lower self. So get some water. You should also drink some water because that's also part of having a human experience is that we have to drink a lot of water. It's annoying sometimes. It's hard to remember, but we have to do it. It's literally the assignment from the gods. Okay. Many of us have a relationship with our higher self, but we also have a lower self, this part of our soul that vibrates to the energy of the earth, the primal self that connects to the wisdom of our animal body. The energy of the lower self is akin to the mushrooms, in constant communion with the earth. There is an intuitive energy here, but not like a cerebral intuition. It's the kind that is guttural and bone ringing, a deep ancestral wisdom. The lower self is part of you that chose to have a human experience, and it offers insight on what it is that you're meant to do in this lifetime. It can also offer you an opportunity to work through existential feelings, since it is the part of you that chose to be embodied. This card invites you to integrate the lower self. I don't know what to say. No notes. Like literally the perfect wrap up to what I was saying. Perfect wrap up. Like, wow. Wow, that's cool. Okay, so one more thing I want to, a couple more things I want to say before I go. First, I want to share that I'm doing a giveaway, and I'm giving away three of my decks, Mirror Muse. Um, I am trying to raise money for this um, nonprofit called Women for Women. They help give support to women all across the world, but especially women who have been in crisis due to war zones. They offer a lot of like menstrual kits for women who don't have access to that. So, you know, sanitary care and support, pain relief. All those things. And yeah, they do a lot of great work, and I want to help raise some money for them. And so I'll be giving away three different decks. To enter the giveaway, it's $5 per raffle ticket. You can enter as many times as you want. I'm going to be pulling the winners on June 9th. There's more information on my Instagram about this, but you can donate directly to Women for Women. They're linked in my link tree, which I'll also link below. Or if you have an issue doing that, you can Venmo me and then I will donate it for you and I'll send you the receipt, of course. But yeah, I'm really hoping that to raise some money me for this, and please also repost the post on Instagram if you can to just spread a little bit of awareness. Yeah, I have just gotten so much love and support from my deck, and I want to, put that energy towards helping other people, helping other women in need. So yeah, so that's going on right now. Um, the other thing that I want to share is that I have one more episode planned for next week, and then I want to start having some guests on the podcast, which I already kind of talked about this a little bit in the beginning, but please let me know if you want a reading. Obviously, you'd be getting a free reading because it would be for the podcast. So if you're curious about working with me, or if you're a longtime client, either way, I would love to give you a reading on the podcast. Again, I do want to give a credit to Jessica Lanyadoo, who is a big inspiration of mine and gives readings on her podcast. But she gives astrology readings. I'm going to be giving tarot readings. It's going to be different. We're different readers. But yeah, she's an inspiration of mine. Yeah, if you want a reading on the podcast, let me know. Also, I'm going to be having some really cool guests. I already have a couple people lined up, but let me know if there's anyone you want to see collaborate with me on the podcast, anyone you want me to interview. If you want to be interviewed, I want to talk to all different types of witches. You don't have to have any kind of like social media platform. This is not about like marketing necessarily. It's just about like sharing different types of practices. And yeah, and any kind of witch woes that you might have. So thank you for listening to me ramble. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope to talk to you very soon. Bye.